Hello there everybody and welcome back. In today's video we are going to be talking about the one and only George Serling, the poet laureate of San Francisco and the unofficial king of Bohemia. Before we proceed with the actual poetry, first I'm going to give a little bit of biographical information so that way you have some much needed context throughout the rest of the video. George Serling was born in Sag Harbor, Long Island, New York. He moved to California when he was 21 to pursue his career as a poet and a playwright. While in California, he became friends with writer and critic Ambrose Bierce, whom served as a mentor and fervent supporter of Serling's work. Bierce championed his early, most notable poems, such as Testimony of the Suns and A Wine of Wizardry, on numerous occasions, going as far as writing raving reviews and defending both poems against critics. Serling settled down in Carmel, California, where he began accumulating like-minded colleagues made up of writers and artists such as Jack London, Mary Austin, Harry Leon Wilson, Upton Sinclair, Nora Mae French, and Clark Ashton Smith. Now, we will be discussing Clark Ashton Smith's work and relationship with Serling in a subsequent video. As for now, what you should know is that Smith read Serling's poem, Testimony of the Suns, and was so amazed by it that Smith decided to write a letter to Serling praising his work. Smith also hoped that Serling would be willing to assist him in some of his own poetry. Also, while in California, Serling and his colleagues formed the Carmel Art Colony, to which Serling was one of the founding members. He also founded the Carmel Arts and Crafts Club and participated in theatrical productions at the Carmel Forest Theater as both an actor and a playwright. Alrighty, so now that we have that biographical information out of the way, now we can start talking about Serling's work as a poet. So what better place to start than the beginning at the Testimony of the Suns and other poems. Testimony of the Suns was finished in 1902, and it is Serling's longest poem. This poem is a cosmic two-part ballad consisting of 161 quatrain stanzas, which equates to 644 lines of poetic text. At the time of its completion, Ambrose Bierce championed the work and worked tirelessly to get it published in numerous magazines, a task Bierce was ultimately unable to accomplish due to the poem's overall length, cosmic subject matter, and grandiose style. That's not to say, however, that this poem was a failure. It was published the following year in 1903 and received 2 additional publications in 1904 and 1907, all selling remarkably well, all things considered. Due to the poem's length, I will only be able to read you a short segment of the poem. Here is Testimony of the Suns. She lifts an alien voice to call to near Denebola, O sun, a little, and thy day is done. A little, and the night is all. A little, and his rays far flown gleam in the dews upon her grave. The storied pomps her epochs gave, a dust within her desert lone. Yea, so shall life, on worlds afar, muse idly of a cosmic tomb, where now past Aliath the gloom stirs not with her awaited star. Her fate, how stranger than we deem, though faith behold with trusting eyes a vision on transmuted skies, the splendors of the human dream. To live though pain and sorrow cease, to reach the high eternal heart, to know infinity nor part, to find the far ideal, peace. The life of each perfected world, august archangels chanting praise, deep ranked in everlasting ways, with wings of grief and exile furled. O dream not all the worlds fulfill, unblessed, unbidden, save of hope, not for finality the scope, and strength of the unaltered will. There are 2 additional poems that I'd like to read to you from this collection. The first poem is titled The Directory, and the second poem is Darkness. The Directory by George Serling. Selective time, mid all the burthened reams, toil graves, no name thy fretting moth shall spare, even though one say, behold my fame aflare. Remote in alien dusks, forever gleams, lingering with the star, for glory seems. In sooth, a sunset drowned in glooming air, nor empire may the stellar Virgil share. Gone like the music of forgotten dreams, gone till on worlds that serve a younger star, estranged by voids that blot Articus's light, or sunder Vega from the bourne of sight. Remoter life shall scan in vain the deep, girt with the voiceless skies that hold afar eternal night, sealing the race's sleep. This poem is titled Darkness by George Serling. The night sate weeping in a lonely land, or ever in the faithless truce of grief, held dumb communion, ominous relief, with mystery and silence hard at hand. Then crept the vast conspiracy to west, and then came birdsong and the sunlit bourne of the unnoted miracle of morn, and for the labor in the darkness rest. My mind grown weary with the day it seemed, had lingered o'er the poet's lines too long, or snows of sorrow hid the flowers of song. For fire and beauty shunned his page, I deemed. Then music was, and lo, beneath the dome of Sung's high land I wandered, found at last where seas and cities of the fabled past, and fairy islands girt with golden foam, will dawn at last beyond the mortal years, reveal the land that now by faith we name, and music with celestial lips proclaim the mystery of unrequited tears. After the publication of Testimony of the Suns, Serling began working on his next volume of poetry, and that of course is A Wine of Wizardry. This poem consists of 207 lines and is written in blank verse with iambic pentameter. But what makes this so interesting is that the poem also has a rhyme scheme which is utterly uncharacteristic of the blank verse style, which is a style that normally forgoes any rhyme scheme in favor of a more narrative structure. Bierce was amazed by the immensity of the poem, and like before, he strived to get Serling's new masterpiece published. Bierce succeeded, and A Wine of Wizardry was first published in Cosmopolitan magazine in September of 1907. This led to a wealth of controversy upon its release, and many readers and critics seemed either disinterested or, perhaps more likely, unable to grasp the magnitude and eccentricity of the work. Here is a segment from A Wine of Wizardry. A Wine of Wizardry by George Serling. When mountains were stained as with wine by the dawning of time, and as wine were the seas. Ambrose Bierce. Without the battlements of sunset shine, mid domes the sea winds rear and overwhelm. Into a crystal cup the dusky wine I pour, and musing at so rich a shrine, I watch the star that haunts its ruby gloom. Now fancy, empress of a purpled realm, awakes with brow caressed by poppy bloom, and wings in sudden dalliance her flight to strands their opals of the shattered light. Gleam in the wind-strewn foam, and maidens flee a little past the striving billows' reach, and seek the russet mosses of the sea, and wrinkled shells that lure along the beach, and please the heart of fancy. Yet she turns, though trembling, to the grotto rosy sparred, where wattled monsters redly gape, that guard a crowned magician peering on the damned through vials wherein a splendid poison burns, sifting satanic ghouls athwart his brow. So fancy will not gaze with him. She wanders to an iceberg oriflamed, with rayed auroral guidons of the north, wherein hath winter hidden ardent gems, and treasuries of frozen ardidems, all right with timid sapphires of the snow, and she would dream of warmer gems, and so, ere long her eyes in fantasies long forth, o'er blue profounds mysterious whence glow the coals of Tartarus on the moonless air, as Titans plan to storm Olympus's throne, mid pulse of dungeon forges down the stunned, undominated firmament, and glare of cyclopean furnaces unsunned. This poem is titled A Mood by George Serling. I am grown weary of permitted things, and weary of the care and burdened age, of any dusty lore of priest and sage, to which no memory of Arcadia clings, for subtly in my blood at evening sings a madness of the fawn, a choric rage, that makes all earth and sky seem but a cage, in which the spirit pines with cheated wings. Rather by dusk for Lilith would I wait, and for a moment's rapture welcome death, knowing that I had baffled time and fate, and feeling on my lips that died with day, as sense and soul were gathered to a breath, the immortal deadly lips that kissing slay. This poem is titled The Man I Might Have Been by George Serling. Now ere the grey and ghastly dawn restore the heartening sun, and conscience at his light withdrawn, behold her toil undone, with more than day's remorseful power, to grimace ghost akin, he comes to haunt a candid hour, the man I might have been. Clear visioned with betraying night, I count his merits o'er, and get no comfort from the sight, nor any cure therefore. I'd mourn my desecrated years, his maimed and sorry twin, but well he knows my makeshift tears, the man I might have been. Decisively his looks declare the heart's divine success. He held no parley with despair, nor pact with wantonness. He wanders with accustomed feet the heights I dreamt to win. A sleepless hour he finds it sweet, the man I might have been. His station in the ranks of good I view with joyless eyes. His victories o'er self withstood, denying I surmise. Though reason slay him at a glance, the mirth of death a grin, defines him master of mischance, the man I might have been. Whereas I ponder in my pride an after dream of day, if thus the willful gods descried my will to scorn the day. He comes where jealous of their youth I nurse a starveling sin, to sting me with the acrid truth, the man I might have been. Though half I deem my gentle friends would love him less than me, no less the daunting wraith attends the dark's sincerity. O fates that held us at your choice, how strange a web ye spin! Why choose ye not with equal voice the man I might have been? After the publication of A Wine of Wizardry, even amongst his detractors, one thing could not be denied, and that is that George Serling was an individual of untapped creative genius. And this continued onto his third work, known as The House of Orchids. It was around this time in Serling's career where his friendship and mentorship with Bierce began to disintegrate. This seemed to happen due to differing of political beliefs and from contempt Bierce held towards many of Serling's colleagues. Nonetheless, this didn't seem to hinder Serling's progress in the least. Serling had already made a name for himself on the West Coast as a master craftsman of poetry, and he lacked neither publishing support nor inspiration. This led to the writing and publication of his third collection of poems, The House of Orchids. This collection is often neglected of praise due to its existence in the overwhelming shadow of its predecessors. The title poem, while not as cosmic in scope, still possesses the quintessential staple of an epic Serling poem. Containing a narrative-like structure with a rhyme scheme, it creates an atmosphere where mythology, scenes of nature, beauty, decadence, and even splashes of horror and fantasy all exist complementary of one another. Here's a sample from House of Orchids. How swift a step from zone to zone, a moment since the day was cool with winds from linden bowers flown, and breath of mounded hay that ripens on the plains. Beneath the shadow of the western hill, and here the air is still, warm as a lesbian valley's afternoon, made languorous with June, and moist with spirits of unnumbered rains, pervaded with a perfume that might be of rainbow-haunted lands beyond the sea and ocean-ending sands, a ghost of fragrance whose elusive hands touch not the hidden harp of memory, whose sprites are those that gleam. Can eyes betray Till now I did not deem that beauty's flaming hands could shape and bloom so marvelous and delicate designs. The vision here that shines seems not a fabric of our mortal day and nature's tireless loom, by customs long defiled, but symbol of a loveliness supreme, a god's forgotten dream, in alabaster told by elfin skill, in caverns underneath a haunted hill, or in some palace of enchantment hewn from crystal in the twilight of the moon, where white astrate strays, and echo and the silver-footed fays make alien music fugitive and wild. Ye seem as flowers exiled, more beautiful because they die so soon. But who the gods that could have scorned your tenderness unmarred? But first ye forth your fragile wings, less on the form than of the soul of things, where Sephram had mourned in Eden's evening heavy starred, when first the gates were barred, and cruel time began. For mystery hath lordship here, and ye seem spirit flowers born to startle man, with intimations of eternity, and hint of what the flowers of heaven may be. Nor can your glamour greatly seem of earth, her blossoms are of mirth, but ye with loveliness can tell of grief, unhappy love, most exquisite and brief. This poem is titled The Moth of Time by George Serling. Lo, this audacious vision of the dust, this dream that it hath dreamt, unresting wings, too strong for time, too frail for timeless things. Whence all thy thirst for God, thy piteous lust for life, to be when matter's chain shall rust? What pact hast thou with the undying kings, silence and death? What Sibyl's counsellings assure thee that the eternal laws are just? Nay, all thy hopes are nothing to the night, and justice but a fragment of thy dream. Upon the waste, what wide mirages glow, with hills that shift and palms that mock the sight, and cities on the desert's far extreme, those vales we name and dare to think we know. This next poem is titled The Evanescent by George Serling. The wind upon the mountainside sang to the dew, my moments fly, in yonder valley I must die, how long thy restless gems abide. Lo, to the bent and laden grass there came the whisper of the dew, my lessening hours how fleet and few, what months are thine ere thou shalt pass. The grass made murmur to the tree, my days a little time are fair, but oh, thy brooding years to share, the centuries that foster thee. Ere died the wind, the tree had sang, O mountain marvelous and strong, the eons of thine age, how long, when I and all my kin lie dead. The mountain spake, O sea, thy strength forevermore I shall not face, at last I sink to thine embrace, thy waves await my rampart's length. The deep gave moan, O stars supreme, your eyes shall see me mute in death, before your gaze I fade like breath of vapors in a mortal's dream. Then bore the void a choral cry, descendant from the starry throng. A little, and our ancient song dies at thy throne, eternity. Then silence on the heavenly deep, wherein the music sank unheard, as shuts the midnight on a word said by a dreamer in his sleep. Before we proceed, there are two other poems from this collection that I'd like you to take note of. One of them is going to be a duenden, and the second one is going to be An Altar of the West. These are also two amazing poems that are included in this volume, and they are both substantially longer than the title poem, being at 222 lines for both of them. So if you enjoy Serling's longer work, be sure to give these a look as well. Alrighty, so before we continue, this is the point where I am forced to break continuity. Due to the sheer volume of work Serling put out in his career, and trying to keep this video to a reasonable length, I will need to be selective in choosing the final poems and events I discuss in this video. I will be sure to leave a list containing all of Serling's work that I covered and was unable to cover in this video. So with that being said, let's continue with To a Girl Dancing. Though Serling was an adamant practitioner of the traditional styles of poetry, such as sonnets and ballads, To a Girl Dancing is the best demonstration of Serling's ability to experiment with new and unique styles. To a Girl Dancing is written in a semi-free verse style, and what makes this so interesting is that while still conforming to a rhyme scheme, the structure, meter, and said rhyme scheme differ from stanza to stanza. This poem not only creates a uniquely provocative storytelling experience, but also supplies the reader with numerous depictions of poetic eroticism. Such lines as swaying their silvern hips and alabastion and exultant thighs are clear examples of this. By today's standards, these lines are relatively tame, but when Serling penned them towards the end of his career, they were nothing short of scandalous. Here is To a Girl Dancing. Has the wind called you sister, sister to Cyprus, who as the far foam kissed her, rose exquisite and white? For seeing you, we dream of all swift things, and of the swallow's flight, of seabirds drifting on untroubled wings, and incense swaying at the shrine of kings, in gossamers of violescent light. In what Sicilian meadows, cool with dew, ran rosier girls than you, with tresses dancing free, to tell how beautiful the world might be. And what high days unborn will sheerer loveliness go forth at morn, to wave a brief farewell to night's last star. For you, we envy not the lost and far, as now you make our day as happy and imperial as they. More than the ripple of grass and water flowing, more than the panther's grace, or poppy touched by winds from sunset blowing, your limbs in rapture trace, an evanescent pattern on the sight, beauty that lives an instant to become a sister beauty and a new delight. So full you feed the heart that hearts are dumb, those little hands set back the hands of time, till we remember what the world has dreamed in her own clime of beauty, and her tides that ebb and flow around old islands where her face has gleamed, the marvelous mirage of long ago. Ah, more than voice hath said, they speak of rivals fled, the alabastian and exultant thighs, the vine-encircled head, the rose-face lifted, lyric, to the skies, the loins by leaping roses garlanded, the sandaled years return, the lamps of Eros burn, the flowers of Circe nod, and one may dream of other days and lands, of other girls that touched unresting hands, said sirens of the god, to some forgotten tune, swaying their silvern hips below the moon. Dance on, for dreams they are indeed, a vision set afar, but you, with warm, immediate beauty plead, and fragrant is your footfall on our star. O flesh made music in its ecstasy, sing to us ere an end of song shall be, of fair things young and fleet, white flower of floating feet. Be glad, for happiness is holy. Be glad awhile, for on the greensward slowly summer and autumn pass, with shadows on the grass, till in the meadow lowly November's tawny reeds shall sigh, alas, dear eyes, what see you on the azure of the skies? Enchanted eager face, seek you young love in his eternal place. Round arms upflung, what is it you would clasp? What far-off lover? Hands that a moment hover. What hands unseen evade a while your grasp? Ah, that is best, to seek but not to find him, for found and loved the seasons yet will blind him. To this true heaven you are, the moth unworthy of your soul's white star. Dance on and dream of better things than he. Dance on, translating us, the mortal guess, at beauty and her immortality, yourself, your flesh-clad art and loveliness. Dance, for the time comes when the dance is done, and feet no longer run on paths of rapture, leading from the day. Release not now the vine that you have bound about your brow. Dance, granting us a while that we forget how morrows but delay, yet come as surely as their own regret. Through you the past is ours, through you the future flowers. In you their dreams and happiness are met, through you we find again that birth of bliss and pain, that things of joy and tears, and hope and laughter, that men call youth, a greater thing than truth, a fairer thing than fame, in songs hereafter, a miracle, an unreturning flame, the season of itself alone worth living, and needing not our patience nor forgiving. O heart that knows enough, and yet must learn the wisdom that we spurn, the years at last will teach you, may now no whisper reach you, of noons when pleading on the flutes shall cease, and not for rapture will you beg but peace. Today it seems too harsh that you shall know how soon the wreaths must go, and those flower-matting feet be gathered, even as flowers by cruel time, their flashing rhyme, no more to mingle with the blood's wild beat. Dance, with no wind to chill your perfect grace, nor shadow on your face, nor voice to call to unenduring rest, the limbs delighting and the naked breast. To a Girl Dancing was published in 1921 as a single poem. After this, Serling would be published 8 different times within his lifetime, but unfortunately, that too would come to an end. For many years before the end of Serling's life, he kept with him a small vial of cyanide. When asked by friends why he kept the poison in his possession, Serling responded by saying, "A prison becomes a home if you have the key." I suppose then it should come as no surprise that the day came when Serling decided to use that so-called key to break free from his prison. On November 17th, 1926, Serling committed suicide at the age of 56. Amongst his papers and effects in his office, a poem was discovered. It is unknown if this is the last poem Serling had ever written, but nonetheless, it allows for a somber look into what were, more than likely, the final thoughts of a brilliant, yet tortured man. The poem is titled, My Swan Song. My Swan Song, by George Serling. Has man the right to die and disappear when he has lost the fight, to sever without fear the irksome bonds of life? When he is tired of strife, may he not seek, if it seems best, relief from grief? May he not rest from labors vain, from hopeless task? I do not know, I merely ask. Or must he carry on the struggle till it's done? Will he be damned if he, world-weary, tired and ill, deprived of strength and will, decides he must be free? Is punishment awaiting those who quit before the whistle blows, who leave before unfinished task? I do not know, I merely ask. While undeniably tragic, I believe there is some faint beauty to be found in Serling's passing. Just as the sun with the most vibrant of vermilion hues shines brightest in the dolorous night, eventually there is no more fuel to burn, no more heat to give, and no more light to see. While Serling may have believed his vibrancy was being snuffed by the shroud of depression, the unceasing flame of his creativity and passion burns ever brighter in the many pages of his work. While Serling's work seems to have faded from the public consciousness, the reading of a single passage from Serling still evokes countless wonders never seen by mortal eyes or dreamt of in the fever of any dream. Ambrose Bierce said it best when he wrote to Serling on 15 March 1902. You must make it your domain. You shall be the poet of the skies, the prophet of the suns.